On this episode, should I use WordPress to build my site? Man, WordPress can eat a. What's up, everyone? It's Ryan, representing Sinister Media at sinister.media. And recently, for a client, we had a client who needed a little bit more functionality behind their website, not just like a website, but needed the ability to blog and do a couple other cool things. And I have a solution coming up for that, and I'll get into that. But needless to say, at the time, that was not the best solution, so I chose to build a WordPress site for them. Man, I freaking hate WordPress. WordPress is so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say my opinion why I don't like WordPress. Now, I understand that a lot of you people out there know WordPress, you use WordPress, you're good at WordPress, and that's cool. But my opinion, and this is my opinion, and people have that on the internet, I hear, is that it's not 2006, Holmes, so we could do better. I'm just saying that we can do better. So if you ask, why don't I like WordPress? My first one will probably be the easiest to contest, and I'm just going to put this out there, but the first thing is PHP. Now, I know a lot of you like PHP, and I actually don't mind PHP that much, but it's just kind of my opinion that the web world is moving away from PHP, and I think you're going to see far more advances in things not PHP. Caveat, from what I understand, Facebook uses PHP, but even they use HHVM. And HHVM, Hip Hop Virtual Machine, if you're not familiar with it, actually has some really cool features. But I just think that for, the current time period, if it's not 2006 when you're watching this, which is not, then you probably have some better options, whether it be a node-based platform, which is constantly expanding, using a Python-based platform, which is a little bit more stable, using a Golang-based platform if you want to be a little bit more cutting edge. I just think that there are some other better options. Secondly, my biggest gripe with WordPress is too much magic. There are too many magic variables in some specific order, and you just have to know that if you call get content or make a query, then suddenly get the content has some data and get the date has some other data, and it's just none of it's explicit. It's just, come on, you can do better than that. Like, it's just too magical, and it's cool that you understand how it works, but it's just one of those things where if you look at it from the outside and you're trying to figure out how this particular piece of content got into this particular place, it's just not obvious. You have to go read the manual to figure out what cascading of various PHP files like happens in what order, such that you got the page that you got. Not good engineering, in my opinion. That's just not good engineering. You can argue it against that, but then you're probably not the best engineer because that's just not good engineering. I'm sorry. Number three is it just feels very bloated to me. Instead of being very directly, this is the web page, this is what we do, there just seems to be kind of like a lot of heft to it. I had so many templates and then sidebars and inner loops, and this is the search, and it just felt to me like it wasn't as lean as possible. Again, that might be more opinion based, so you may not want to take that fact, but for me and the way that I like to code, I find it bloated. Numero cuatro, plugins. You may think that plugins are a great idea, and it's one of the things that sounds great on paper. I am not a plugin fan. I think it, again, just adds too much bloat. You don't know where that code's coming from, and you're going to laugh at me because I use Node. I understand the sheer irony of saying that something has too much bloat and then using Node. But again, it stands. I think plugins are the same way. You never quite know what you're getting until you install it. There are too many of them. Half of them don't do quite what you want to do. So there's something else, you have to try 5 different things before you find the one that you want. And more importantly to me, like at the end of the day, the way it feels for me is that the client shouldn't be making decisions about what plugins to install because it makes it easier for them to mess things up. That's just my opinion. I think that WordPress is just the wrong separation of concerns because basically it makes back end all backend is equivalent. So backend plugins is equivalent to backend DevOps is equivalent to backend user agent management is equivalent to backend posting your fucking blog. The people who create the user and or security and or DevOps policies are not the same people who are necessarily blogging. It's just stupid to assume that they are and should be in the same backend. Um, and I'm not even going to get into how I dislike how the entire like user base is all kind of just like shoved into the background. So administrators and users kind of like all are the same thing. Anyway, so you may be asking, what do I like? Well, for very light websites, one of my favorites is actually Squarespace, and I really like the way that Squarespace is built because everything makes sense to me. You have HTML templates, you have JavaScript over here, you have basically a template file that tells how to construct an individual page. Boom, boom, boom. Very clear separation of concerns. Very lightweight yada yada. There are definitely some issues with Squarespace, i.e., Squarespace is a closed platform, therefore, you have no control over where your stuff is being hosted. And I think the DevOps concerns is probably the biggest thing against Squarespace. But that brings me to Porous. What the fuck is a Porous? A Porous, well, not a Porous. Porous is actually an open source project that I'm starting because I had this very problem. Porous can be found at, well, I don't know. I have a GitHub for it, and I'll probably link that up in the description below. But Porous is basically going to be a relatively lightweight, relatively opinionated node-based architecture for building websites, which separates the concerns of users separating, changing their variables and posting content. It basically separates engineering from content, and that's what people want. Your users want to be able to post their content and have basically absolute control over their content, and that's separated from back-end engineering and architecture and what the functionality of the website is. So that's my particular answer to this, is that I'm not a huge fan of the things that are out there, so I started building my own. And so you may be saying, well, of course you don't like WordPress and you're just trying to get us to buy your thing. Well, bitches, it's free. So there, what else can I do for you? I make you a free Porous, and this is how you treat me. So yeah, go check that out. It's going to be free and open source. I hope the community takes a look at it, rips it apart, comments it. Definitely open to people contributing to it. Just FYI, I'm very opinionated how I want this to be. I'm just a very opinionated person anyway. And then this is a project that I see as being like my project, so it's the way that I want it to be. If you want to go off and fork it and make super porous and you want to use some really cool like specialty stuff, then go for it. But no plugins, really tight, pure JavaScript. That's the kind of thing I'm going for. It's backed by Node. Database can be whatever you want. And using ES6 because I think ES6 is baller. So check that out at whatever it is that I linked in the description. Anyway, that's my thoughts on WordPress. Sure, I offended some people, but not that many people watch my videos right now, so it's okay. I didn't really piss that many people off, right? As always, I'm Ryan. You can contact the gang at hello@sinister.media, and until next time, peace.